Hello, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well. Again, I want to say thank you to Notacult and Daniel for opening up the workshops and knowing that all the funds that y'all Venmo come to the artists and the writers and your instructors directly. So thank you for that. Also know that the bookstore at Notacult online has anywhere between, was it a 25 to 50% discount right now? Is that correct, Daniel?
That is correct.
Yes, so if you want to continue to support the press, go and buy a book and enjoy a book. If not, feel free to Venmo me. I'll provide that on the link, on the chat link, as well as it's on the flyer. So at any time, feel free to do that. But just real quick, if y'all just jumped in, I see there's 12 people now. Feel free to introduce yourself, where you're coming from the virtual world, and as well as any snack item or beverage that you're enjoying right now. While we have folks doing that, please know this is a safe space, so anything we share here stays here. Don't be like posting up tweets about, you know, Funalito said this about strawberries, you know, whatever. It stays here. But in the meantime, there is a link that I provided on the chat box. It's a Google Doc link that we'll be interacting with. I was really inspired by Jose Olivares and Daniel's workshop this week, and thinking about accessibility, and Google Docs is a really nice way to provide that as we go through workshop today. So feel free to open that, start browsing through that. We'll start in a minute, and yeah, get yourself cozy. If you haven't got a snack yet or something to drink, now's the time to go run, get that so you can nourish yourself during workshop. And I will get a few things set up here. Also, anytime if I get cut off because of internet or I don't know, something happens, feel free to just like shout at me on the chat box, and I'd be happy to repeat anything. And yeah, so everybody have access okay to the Google Doc? Everybody good? Okay, virtual thumbs. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Awesome. So let me get us through that. Let me open that for myself real quick. I'm not sure where it went. Okay, beautiful. And during discussion or writing or sharing, if you got questions or things you want to add to the conversation, please, please, I encourage you to participate and show up and share. Yeah, please feel free to do so. So today's topic is buffet poems, talking about food in the world of politics. And again, I think about the chaotic times we're living right now, and how our diets, food accessibility is now in a moment of evolving and transformation. Everyone's buying the eggs and the toilet paper. Everyone's buying all the ground turkey and the paper towels. And so thinking about accessibility, thinking about people going from meat to turning into vegetarians, people going from buying processed foods to being farmers. So all of these evolutions of diets and accessibility are changing. And so that made me think about how we can talk about food through poems. So we'll be going through 3 prompts today that will give us different entrances to talk about various ways we interact and engage with food. So for like a free write real quick, maybe for about 5 minutes, I want you to think about why food is important, besides the idea that it tastes good, because it does, right? And besides the idea that we need food to survive. So I invite you for about 5 minutes. You can write in your notebooks, or you can type it and add that and contribute to the Google Docs where we could save that. So for about 5 minutes, think about, why is food important, aside from consumption and survival? So you got 5 minutes. And while you write that, you can do poem, bullet points, free write, your call. You have about a minute left. So if you want to add anything onto the Google Doc or finish up what you're writing on your notebook, that would be great. All right, so some of you are like on a typing spree right now. That's exciting. Good, okay, so we have a lot to think about regarding food. Before we move on, does anybody want to expand or just share or something that hasn't been mentioned on the Google Doc of like, when we think about food beyond consumption, nourishment, survival, what else are we thinking about? If anybody just kind of wants to raise their hand, Daniel will get you and just contribute to the conversation.
Also, feel free just to like unmute yourself. Oh, Indira, I see you. Let's do this.
Yeah, feel free to do that as well, since it's only like 14 of us.
Hi. So I wrote in my little document kind of a poem about different kinds of fruit and the memories that I have associated with different family members that go along with different aspects of each fruit.
Okay, good. I love that, right? And so we can think about food as a photo album, and that each food item, right, holds the history of a family member, a loved one, or in this case, right, memory. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Did you want to read your piece, or you're okay, or you're good?
I'm okay for now. I think it's in Spanish, so I don't know if that would be like, not everyone in here speaks Spanish, so.
Any language, code switching, Spanglish is always welcome in workshops. So, but whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, I think I can read it.
All
It's
right, go
short.
for it.
Awesome. Okay. El sabor a melocotón murciano me recuerda a tu ser, suave por fuera y dulce por dentro. El tacto de una piña marrón me recuerda a tu ser, pincha por fuera y tiene tanto por dentro que jugosamente explota. El olor a caramelos de fresa me recuerda a tu ser, adornado por fuera, and then I was like trying to find the word for the next part of por dentro.
Okay, good. And I love that you're talking about the interior and exterior of fruit, and the juice and the sugar and the consumption of engaging with that item. So awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share how we think about food? Everybody's like, no, I'm eating.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I mean, I wrote in the Google Doc, but something that always kind of comes to mind is just how much food that is in front of you had so many different steps to get into the form that it is now presented to you. Right. You know, it had to be planted, it had to be harvested, it had to be transported, touched and packaged by so many different people, and then lovingly, or maybe not so much, you know, prepared and touched and created and transformed into the way that it is before you now. So I feel like food, regardless of what it is always going to be connection. There's no way it can be. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so acknowledging that food can go through metamorphosis, meaning multiple people engage with it to process it into what it ultimately is before we consume it, right? So someone plants the carrots, someone harvests the carrots, packages them, gets them into the stores, we buy them, we prepare a meal, and that is the final product. So one of the prompts I wrote on my Instagram today was thinking about the stories that are tied to the foods and beverages we consume. And so I like the idea of thinking of how many people or how many stories are tied to a food item. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else before we move on?
Hello. I just literally wrote one sentence in the drive, but I think it's really important to recognize how it's a gift from like Mother Nature. Madre Tierra, it's kind of like a way. Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It's kind of like a way of recognizing how important the land we are, indigenous land. I'm sorry, my sister is in the other room. How indigenous land is, and yeah, it's respecting what the land has to offer for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. And paying tribute to our ancestors and Mother Earth and the various factors that take place in creating the food, right? The food that's most natural. So the soil, the worms, the water, the sun, all the spirits of the land that create food and the harvest for us. And I think the acknowledgement of that is also very important. So thank you for sharing that. So with that being in mind, I added some other topics to think about that food can do, and thinking of food connected to family, ghosts, discipline, comfort food, erotica, again, survival, indulgence, as well as everything that y'all have added, which is really great to think about that food when we engage with it is tied to memory and family and histories and cultura. And so I don't know about y'all, but growing up, all the stories I read or all the poems I read, food was very minimal. I got to read about apple pie, about apples, which women would eat, and that was like the sin of Adam, right? And women were now forever sinful because we like ate the apple, right? The consumption of like a peach. And so there was always this very limited understanding of food, but never did I get to read one poem about raspados, churros, tostitos, nacho cheese, mom's caldo, enchiladas, or whatever food item that is tied to your cultura or the traditions that you facilitate at home. So I want us to think about today that now's the time for us to archive more than ever the cuisine that we engage with that brings us joy and that brings us a reminder of the past, because nobody else is going to write it. And for us to deny ourselves those stories is to deny pieces of who we are, and is to deny the various perspectives that exist on this land. We can only have and read so many poems about the apple and American pie and hot dogs, which are all delicious, but we are limiting the pellet's perspective to understand story. So today I invite you to be fearless and free in writing about the foods that bring you joy or bring you the memories that you love and that you want to archive. And so I want to now get us prepared for our first writing prompt. I want to talk a little bit about Jose Olivares' Ode to Cheese Fries. So if you scroll down, anybody interested out there in reading this piece? Anybody brave out there? And this piece is actually from his book called Citizen Illegal. It's a fantastic read, which I recommend. But he does have this poem called Ode to Cheese Fries, which is doing some really awesome and interesting things. But anybody interested in reading? Any brave souls out there?
I can read it.
Dope. All right, go for it. Hi, Portia.
Hi, Carla. How you doing, love?
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay. Ode to Cheese Fries by Jose Olivares. Golden goo of artificial delicious, what probably lines my stomach with sun like grease for weeks after eating the yellow. So yellow it could only be manufactured so that if it's fake, as much cheese content as Apple Jolly Ranchers I come from, a city of foreclosure. Foreclosure empty lot city where we got dollar store brand action figures. So what my Wolverine didn't have retractable claws or the right uniform. So my joy at Pano's, my favorite fried everything spot, the cashier's voice, a box of Newports filtered through throat I didn't know. I would miss this home where the patties come from freezers and maybe not ever from cows or even animals. I live in a city that brags about its organic fair trade,
quinoa fed beef. Of course, I miss the 90s pop playing the restaurant, the Backstreet Boys, live in Cow City where the band never breaks up. The song plays on repeat as the cashier takes my order. Say it with me, cheese fries, please. Give me everything artificial, including cardboard fries, the bread fresh out of some Walmart cloning experiment. Throw in a cold pop. I want a joy so fake it stains my insides and never fades away.
Hey, virtual applause. Woo! All right, thank you, Portia. Okay, cool. So I want us to first, step number 1 is the title is Ode to Cheese Fries. What do we know about odes? What is an ode? And you can type it into the Google Docs or you can jump on in. Let's do that now. What's an ode? You can take a guess too. Thoughts? Like, I don't know. Okay, cool. Rocio said it's honoring something. Awesome. So this is going to be our first poem approach, is that an ode is our way of praising and celebrating something in its original existence. This can be how we engage with it. This can be how it is represented and held in the world. This can be how we see others, so we can also be witness to a thing we love, right? And in this case, we have Jose Olivares giving an ode to something that he loves dearly, and in this case, it's cheese fries. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to revisit the poem, and you can underline or highlight anything in the Google Docs and write a few comments, but I want us to think about the following. How does Jose approach his ode to cheese fries? What is the order of discussion topics when introducing cheese fries to his readers? In other words, when I say order, how does he start? What is the order? So what does he say first, second, third, fourth? Walk us through that, or you could take us to a couple moments and then think about, is this poem just about cheese fries? What else is this poem trying to do? So I'll give you a minute or two, go to the Google Doc, highlight different moments that call out to you regarding those questions, and then we'll chat in a second. Give you another minute, and then we'll chat about this for a sec. Okay, so while you're adding comments, continue to add comments, but let's work through this one stanza and people just jump in and add to conversation. So I believe this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 stanza poem. So stanza is just the poetic term for a group of lines that are sectioned off and visibly cut off between different chunks of sentences, which is a stanza, a small little paragraph, essentially. But I want us to see how Jose Olivares is approaching the poem. How do we go about talking about something we love? And in the first stanza, what is Jose's approach? Anybody jump in? And you can do that on the Google Doc, or you can just hop on and just start a conversation.
Could you repeat your question?
Absolutely. So in the first stanza, how is Jose starting the poem regarding his ode to cheese fries? What's the first thing he chooses to talk about?
I mean, I can say, for me, it's him just or bringing us into what his experience of eating the cheese fries is like, in a very like sensory way, and so he's introducing the main character here.
Okay, excellent. And I love that you call it a character. Dope. So we know that his approach first, right? Our essential go-to when talking about food is like, let me tell you what it tastes like because it's delicious. And in this case, he is glorifying the food item. Golden goo of artificial deliciousness, what probably lies my stomach with sun like grease for weeks after, right? And so one of the approaches to start our poem, our ode to some food item, is, can we glorify, and I love that you call it a character, the character or the food item, and why do we love it so much? And Jose pushes the language. He doesn't just say, I love you, cheese slathered all over the French fries. No, he has fun with the language. Golden goo of artificial deliciousness. We are learning so much about the character. It is not a natural product, but it shines like gold because it's that good, right? We also have the discussion of how the item is also affecting the body. It lines my stomach with sun like grease for weeks. Again, the correlation of the beauty and power of sun, but grease ain't that awesome either inside of the stomach, right? So his first approach we can think about is like the description of how the food item lives for us according to our experiences. If we go to the second stanza, anybody jump in? So what's the next step Jose does? What's his next approach in talking about the ode to cheese fries? I think someone wrote a comment on the side here. Let me see. I'm hoping I say this right. Emilia? Hey, did you want to add anything to what you mentioned?
Which comment?
You highlighted a city.
Oh, the second. just that, you know, like in the first stanza, you know, he's like, you know, we had talked about, you know, he's introducing who's the main character, the main event, you know, the who's the central, and what that's like for him. You know, clearly he's got a huge attachment to it, but here he's starting to like ground that experience and put it in context, and, you know, give it a place and some texture around it. Yeah, we're starting to imagine, okay, so this singular experience of like eating the cheese fries is within this larger city that's got some issues, like, you know, and we're starting to imagine, you know, sort of what the kind of neighborhood that we're in right now. And yeah.
Yeah, okay, dope, good. So we're being grounded in the foundation in which the food exists on. So now we're learning about social class. This is probably middle, lower class location regarding food accessibility, a city that is not super financially stable regarding food access, food deserts, therefore the reasons for processed food. So thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna just open the floor now for anybody that wants to jump anywhere before we move on. Any other parts of this poem that Jose is wanting to inform us about regarding Ode to Cheese Fries, or his approach in talking about cheese fries?
There's a line in there that says in the first stanza, "So what if it's fake?" And I feel like he says, "I don't care about your judgment," because I feel like society judges our food choices a lot.
Yeah.
And when you're poor, you buy what you could afford, you buy what comforts you, and sometimes it's not very good for us, but it brings a momentary comfort for us, and he doesn't care about anyone's judgment about that.
Okay, thank you for that. Absolutely, Rocio. So I think this idea of what kind of food can exist in poems, there might be the stigma that it needs to be pretty and it needs to be poetic and it needs to be romantic. And the idea of becoming vulnerable and showcasing a food item that might not be socially middle upper class. There's a wonderful poet, his name's Karla Cordero, and he does a whole poem about Maruchan and top ramen, and how that's important to what nourishes him, but also what his mother can make and call a meal because she works so much, right? And so thinking about food as, again, an opportunity to talk about who we are versus the judgment of that's what food is to you, that's nourishment. And so I think, Rocio, that's a really great line to call out about he doesn't care who thinks cheese fries is a healthy item or a food item to even be considered under the food chain of like good. So thank you. Anything else for this piece before I move on?
I also just really like that he brings in the sense of hearing, because I think when you think about food, you don't really think about like the noises that you get, and it's not even like the noise of like a crunching apple, it's like the sounds outside of him that he brings into his experience of eating the food.
Yes. Did you have a sound in mind that called to you?
I really like the cashier's voice, a box of Newports filtered through throat. That's insane to me.
Right? And so when using the five senses, in this case hearing, not all the time do we have to say crunchy, chewy, crispy. We can, but also pay attention to being witness of environmental sounds that become meditative in the consumption. Paying attention to the music that exists outside of what's happening inside of the mouth, right? The radio that's playing inside of your favorite Mexican restaurant. The two couples that are bickering off to the corner when you're picking up Chinese takeout. Right? The door bell that rings when you open to come in to sit down with your family for dinner, right? And so paying attention to the five senses that are beyond consuming. And I think that's really cool that you got that. So we're gonna write for about 6-8 minutes. And remember, you might not be done. You might have just hit 2 lines. I just want to offer the prompts to you so you can later revisit and develop. So your goal now is I want you to write an ode to your favorite food. I do want you to think about using the 5 senses and the description of the food according to your experiences, but then I want you to push beyond that as well. How does the food tell a story? And if you need to revisit the list we created on top, right? It grounds us with our culture, it grounds us with something we can share with our families. Like, go to those to help spark some influence of how that food is important to you. If that's the food item that you brought to eat today during workshop, great. Start eating it, more of it, and use that as kind of the push towards your ode. So 6, 7 minutes, an ode to the food you love. Let's do it now. Let's try it. And I'm gonna put a little music in the background so we're not too awkwardly in silence. Or just hit your buds, put something you like to listen to.
Wash my soul. I will come to river. Wash my soul. I will come to river. Wash my soul again. Carry away my dead leaves. Let me baptize my soul with the help of your waters. Sink my pains and complaints. Let the river take them. River, drown them. My ego and my blame. Let me baptize my soul with the help of your waters. Those old means I'm so ashamed. Let the river take them. River, drown them. Come to river. I will come to river. I will come to river. Wash my soul. I will come to river. Wash my soul. I will come to river. Wash my soul again. Carry away my old leaves. Let me baptize my soul with the help of your waters. Sink my pains and complaints. Let the river take them. River, drown them. My ego and my blame. Let me baptize my soul with the help of your waters. Those on me so ashamed. Let the river take them. River, drown them. Come to river. I will come to river. I will come to river. Come to river. Wash my soul. I will come to river. Wash my soul. I will come to river. Wash my soul again.
Everything in life is a negotiation. When you cross the street, is it
It's frustrating when you just can't express yourself, and it's hard to trust enough to undress yourself, to stand exposed and naked in a world full of hatred, where the sick thoughts of mankind control all the sacred. I pause, take a step back, record all the sad times. Fast forward towards the stars and the jetpack. My feet might fail me, my heart.
Right, if you want to finish up in maybe 1 more minute.
Synagogues of Satan might accuse or tell me I get something to say. Oh, yesterday's gone, tomorrow's on the way. That name on that birth certificate, that ain't the real me. That ain't the real me. The lies can't conceal me. The sunrise and the moon tides and the sky is gonna reveal me. My brain pours water on my tear to heal me. I got something to say. Oh, yesterday.
Okay, we want to slowly make the return back. Welcome. All right, we got lines, we got words, we got odes. Anybody wants to read what they wrote? Me, please. Ashley, go ahead, unmute yourself, share a little what you wrote.
Okay, I'm sorry y'all for taking too much space, but the reason why I wanted to go first is because I have class like in 7 minutes. Okay.
No, that's all good. Go for it.
Okay. Ahí va. The $1 iced tea from Donut Avenue is the best deal you can get. Yeah, it might taste like agua de trapeador with a fusion of glaze, pero TBH, there's nothing in Calesia that will take away the dehydration from the heat waves. The crushed ice, el salpicado de limón, te prometo, te quita en chinga el calorón. And it's still, yeah.
Hey, nicely done. Thank you so much. You from Calesia? Beautiful.
Yes, I am.
Nice to hear the tea, and I love the correlation of temperature and how the beverage plays a big role in soothing the heat. Please continue working on that. You got something there. I love it. And if you got to escape in a bit, thank you for hanging out. Thanks, Ashley. Anybody else? Other odes? Anybody feeling brave?
I wasn't able to finish it, but I'll read what I have so far.
Yeah.
My suegra's cooking is enlightenment. From all her dishes, my favorite is her pozole. The reddish hue of the caldo stains my tongue, feeling all the spices as it goes down my throat. The maize floating in the bowl is our culture personified. That's it for now.
Yeah, can you read that last line for me, please?
The maíz floating in the bowl is our culture personified.
What a dope line. Thank you so much. And I love that the food is engaging with the mouth. And so there's like a stain, there's a memory. And I love it. Great. Thank you. Please continue as well to work on this piece. Anybody else? Want to share a few lines from their ode?
I can go.
Yes, please.
So today I guess it's coming out in Spanish. So my apologies to the people who don't speak Spanish, but it's just coming out that way today.
You're good. And I always tell folks, like, if y'all don't know Spanish, that's okay. Listen to like what the music is trying to do to your body, and there can be conversations there as well. So please, by all means, go ahead and share.
Los cortes de charcutería caoba dejan rastritos de grasa en los dedos y empeñan el pan hasta que se vuelve correoso. Sin falta siempre quito el tocino, que acaba adornando las afueras del plato. Huele a una mezcla de sal y casa de la abuela.
Hey, awesome. Thank you. Awesome job. I love the thumbs that get to engage with the item. So yes, continue working on these, please. And that's Indira. Am I saying that correctly? Indira.
Yep, Indira.
Indira. All right, thank you so much. Anybody else want to read another ode, a line or two, or maybe what they talked about in their ode?
I'll share.
Yeah, go for it. And then
All right.
Belém?
Yes, Belém.
Belém, awesome.
Sopita, sopita, liquid broth melted right off the bone. Vegetables mushed and gutted for my pleasure. Liquid goodness that nourishes my soul. Albóndigas, menudo, ramen with the noodles. Vegetales, egg drop make my heart stop. Warming up my insides, a comfort that sheds and melts the flesh off my bones.
Damn, melts the flesh off my bones. Sopita, sopita. Ah, I love the music. The repetition is also nice to kind of get the attention of like childhood, because a lot of times it's like sopita and fideo and those warm soups that our family to comfort us. So the childness of it's really nice. Thank you. So I need some sopita, sopita right now. Anybody else got another ode? Okay, so I want to move on to our next topic. If we can go back to our Google Doc link real quick. And for the sake of time, we can type and talk at the same time. The question I posed was, where does hate come from and why do we hate food? So I'm open to people just jumping in and talking about where does hate come from. That's a huge concept, and that discussion can go on for years. But where does hate come from generally in the short amount of time we have left, and why might we hate food or certain foods? Whoever wants to jump in and just add.
Hi. I think personally, a lot of the foods that I hate usually are correlated with like some sort of like childhood trauma. Like I know that like I caught a stomach flu after eating chicken nuggets once, and now I like don't order chicken nuggets from McDonald's because of like this weird discorrelation of it. So I know that it's usually the memories that are attached with the food, or like being forced to eat a food that you don't like as a child is also another.
Thank you for sharing. So Andre talks about how childhood can often be the memory of why we hate things growing into adulthood. And a lot of times it could be the trauma of being forced to eat the thing. Eat your pinchy broccoli, it's good for you. And you're like, ew, gross. And then you're like, I hate it. I don't like broccoli. Or in this case, food poisoning at the same time. So now the body's rejection of the actual item itself. Anything else? Where does hate come from, or why we might hate certain foods? To add to that? And I'm a lover of all food, so it's really hard for me to be like, do I really hate a food? The only food I could think is the first date I went on with my partner. I did that bullshit answer where I was just like, oh yeah, order whatever you want. And the first thing he orders is sea urchin. I've never had sea urchin in my life. So when I saw it, it looked like a lengua, like a tongue. And it was the most disgusting thing for my mouth to process regarding texture and smell. And so now I forever hate sea urchin. I'm still with my partner, so but I'm not a fan of sea urchin. And so I hate the correlation of like smell, taste, and the inability to even hold a conversation because this once living creature was inside of my mouth, and it was horrible, it was disgusting. So thinking about the idea of texture can also be, and smell can also be correlated to why we hate things. Anything else to add?
Sometimes guilt, because if you eat something that's unhealthy, afterwards you feel guilty because it's going to make you gain weight. Things of that nature. That's why some people hate food too, because they gain weight if they eat too much. Right.
And a lot of times within our culture, our parents would always say like, you look too skinny, eat, consume, right? In some other cultural cases, they're like, oh, don't eat that, that's not good for you, right? And so it's the emotions tied to food that can trigger us to why we hate certain foods. And yeah, the idea of like shame and guilt definitely plays a role. So thanks, Rocio. So I want us to listen. I'm gonna play the audio for a poem called Why I Hate Raisins from the book When My Brother Was an Aztec by Natalie Diaz. And I want us to think about her reasonings for hating raisins, and not just for the taste, but pushing beyond that. And so I'll play the audio real quick.
Here. But,
and you can follow along and add to the comment section if there's a line that pops out to you.
This is my ode to government food.
Can people hear it?
It's pretty inconsistent.
Damn it. Okay, if not, just read it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, or do we want to volunteer to read if the audio's not great?
I can read it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. Why I Hate Raisins by Natalie Diaz. And it is only the mouth and belly which are injured by hunger and thirst. Mencius. Love is a pound of sticky raisins packed tight in black and white government boxes the day we had no groceries. I told my mom I was hungry. She gave me the whole bright box. USDA stamped like a fist on the side. I ate them all in 10 minutes. Ate too many too fast. It wasn't long before those old grapes set like black clay at the bottom of my belly, making it ache and swell. I complained, I hate raisins. I just wanted a sandwich like other kids. Well, that's all we got, my mom sighed. And what other kids? Everyone but me, I told her. She said, you mean the white kids. You want to be a white kid? Well, too bad, because you're my kid. I cried. At least the white kids get a sandwich. At least the white kids don't get the shit. That's when she slapped me, left me holding my mouth and stomach. Devoured by shame, I still hate raisins, but not for the crooked commodity lines we stood in to get them, winding around in the tribal gymnasium. Not for the awkward cardboard boxes we carried them home in, not for the shits or how they distended my belly. I hate raisins because now I know my mom was hungry that day too, and I ate all the raisins.
Awesome. Thank you, Andre. So, what do we think? Couple comments. What are our thoughts on the poem? Do y'all still like raisins? Do y'all love raisins? Aside from its essential texture and taste, Natalie offers us more of a message beyond, right? So what are we learning aside from taste and texture? Food now represents what?
Wealth disparity.
Yeah. So we have Natalie talking about raisins being in correlation to government cheese and government food, and the idea of this is all they had because this is all that was offered. So when that's all you have to eat, you have Natalie being tired of it, but coming to the realization at the end, she wasn't the only one. Anything else? Any other lines that jumped out or that you thought was interesting or powerful about the piece?
It makes me think of the word shame.
Mm.
At the end when she says, I hate raisins because now I know my mom was hungry that day too, and I ate all the raisins. And it was kind of relatable to me as like growing up and going to school with my huevo con chile verde and, you know, and being made fun of for that and wanting a Lunchable like the white kids. But then at the end, when I read that, it made me think of like how hearing similar things from my mother of, do you want to be a white kid? Or this is who we are. This is what we eat. This is, you know, what you get. And possibly her carrying that shame as well. And then passing it down.
Right. Yeah. And we all had those moments from whatever cultural or social class backgrounds. I remember eating weenies con chile for lunch and someone eating this bomb pudding cup. And I got made fun of because of my weenies con chile. And I never wanted to eat them again because I wanted the pinchy pudding cup. Like I thought that was like the more legit thing to eat as a kid. And so our job now is to think about borrowing from Natalie Diaz's poem to write your own little poem. I'll give you maybe 6 minutes, 8 minutes, using the line, why I hate, and giving the origin story to why you hate that item. Now, I don't want you to jump into anything traumatic. I don't want the poem to offer that if you don't want to go there. But I do want you to explore why you hate a certain food item up to the extent you feel comfortable. And again, it doesn't have to be something memory-wise traumatic. It can literally be like Andre had said, I ate chicken nuggets and got food poisoning and what that did to the body, right? So I'll give about 6, 8 minutes. Why I hate blank. See where you go. And I'll put a little music back on so we can write for a bit, and I'll check in a bit.
Tomorrow's on the way. The message grab a hold to every ears that get whispered in. The waters and the bays of New Orleans still glistening. Yeah. The universe is listening. Be careful what you're saying in. My grandma told me every bed a nigga make. He laying there. I got something to say. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow's on the way. The church you go to pray in it. The work is on the outside. Stuttering out the window. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow on the way.
Discover new music at listener-powered.kexp.org.
Even if I feel the sun on my skin every day, if I don't feel you, even if I see the most beautiful thing up in the sky, if I don't see you, take me take me take me take me even if my hands can catch the wind, catch the clouds, if I don't see you, even if I feel the sun on my skin every day, if I don't feel you, take me take me take me take me Regresas, suena y miel en mi boca, suena y miel en la ropa. Cerrarnos solo hay melodía. Recuerda.
We got about 1 more minute. All right, so as you're slowly making the return back, go ahead and finish up that last line, last thought, last phrase, make some final notes of what you want to continue writing regarding the piece when you revisit it again. Coming back and thinking about Natalie Diaz's poem, Why I Hate Raisins, how might you borrow her approach for writing about something you're not a big fan of regarding food? Did anybody want to share what they wrote, an idea or a concept? Floor is open.
I'll share.
Yeah, please.
So to give a little bit of context to this poem, so I'm a cancer survivor. So a couple of months before I was diagnosed, the only thing that I could stomach or the only thing I could eat was those Ensure drinks that they sell. So here's the poem I wrote based on that. I hate those Ensure type drinks, the ones in the white and blue bottles. They advertise flavors that belong in your favorite desserts. What they actually taste like is grainy mush, like metal going down my throat. If I never see one of those bottles again, it would mean I had the fortune to live another year.
Rocio, thank you for sharing that. Thank you, thank you. You know, virtual snaps your way. Could you read the last line one more time, please?
If I never see one of those bottles again, it would mean I had the fortune to live another year.
Damn. That's a great closing line. Thank you, Rocio, for sharing. How did it make you feel revisiting Ensure again? Maybe not as like the actual consumption, but like in language.
I feel like it, I'm going on into my third year of being in remission. So something like this, I wouldn't have been able to share maybe like last year without crying. But now I feel like I'm healing from a lot of the things that I went through during that year and in treatment. So it feels a little bit like liberating, kind of like I want to share my story because I'm a survivor and I'm here and I got through this.
Well, Rocio, thank you for sharing that. And we are all super honored that we get to be in the space where you get to share something that you haven't done in a long time. So thank you for sharing that. And we applaud that your life and your light is here with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm done to share.
Yay, please.
Chewy, gummy, toffee, tacky candies. Those slick, sour patch kids, 'cause they stick between my gums and I want to chew them first, 'cause fuck sweet. Make my molars want to let loose and jump ship. Get into a caramel cube once too soon, and now my jaw clicks like a matraca. Tengo boca necia. Wish I could savor, but flavor is fleeting.
Hey, that's what's up. Molars jump ship. I love the teeth becoming actual things that are like, I'm out, you know? Awesome job, Andre. The sound is beautiful as well. So I love how lyric you are in a lot of what you write. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Portia's like, not today. Not today. Okay, but continue to work on these. I'm going to quickly talk about our last prompt today because we only have a few minutes left. But I still want to offer the prompt to you. The prompt is inspired by Jessica Salgado. She does an amazing job of using food as a source of talking about erotica and sexy and romanticizing what food can do regarding our connections to humanity, and how sometimes food can be the starting point of not just our humanity, but how we can engage with other people in the world regarding heartache, love, you know, again, erotica, and how making food, instructional food, can guide us into those topics. The poem I offer you is called Molcajete from her book Corazón. And the poem walks you through the process of using the molcajete. And those of you that don't know, it's like a stone bowl with a stone like handle of sorts that grinds up grilled or boiled vegetables that essentially turn into a salsa. Some folks use it for guacamole, you know, your choice. But because we only have about 6 minutes left, I'll leave the document here with you so you can read through that. But to end on a happy note, to think about how poems can also talk about how to make things, and the process of how we make things can archive a beauty in that, and who we get to share it with or don't get to share it with. So before I wrap up, anybody want to read the poem so we can hear like the instructions of how to make something? And then I get to tell Jessica, guess who read your poem today?
I'll read it.
All right, please.
Molcajete by Jessica Salgado. Boil the tomatillos, boil the chiles, place them in the molcajete with peeled garlic cloves. Take the stone in your right hand, press it into the green. Feel the tomatoes turn themselves inside out. The seeds of the chiles crawl out of their skin. The garlic become dozens of scattered teeth. Lean into the molcajete as if waiting for a kiss. Turn your hand as you grind the stone against stone. Again, again, again. My mother would make the salsa verde for my father, serve it to him during dinner, as if to say, here, this is what my heart looks like. He would spoon it into his tortilla, a taco full of her, eyes watering between bites. When you loved me, I didn't know if I was the stone or the hand, the tomatillos or the garlic. You were definitely the chile. You were the bite and the fire. You were the tears and the tortilla. I sat my heart before you, watched you eat, waited for you to tell me it tasted like home. You didn't.
Belém, thank you so much for reading. So, instructional poems. Think about what you would make, who would you make it for, because it changes how you make something based on who you're making it for, right? So if I'm gonna feed myself, I'm gonna just make a 3-minute soup. I'm fast, maruchan, let's go. Limon, chile, let's go. But if I'm gonna make a meal for my partner, I'm gonna chop up some onions. I'm gonna throw some garlic. I'm gonna make a meal that we can both share, and it's made with love. It's made with an intimacy. Leaving you with this final prompt, provide an instructional poem on how you make a food or a recipe, and who would you make it for? So I'll repeat that again. The final prompt for today is an instructional poem telling us how do you make a particular food item or provide us with the recipe, keeping in mind who you are making it for. And then later you can read the Mangoes poem by Jessica Salgado, which shows another way of like peeling, even just the idea of peeling fruit can also be an act or an instructional act of intimacy. Giving us a quick recap, we talked about odes to the foods that we love, exploring the histories of our taste buds and why we hate certain foods, and making the idea of making food that can be sexy and exhibit heartache and romantic reminders of how to connect to our humanity. I did provide a few books you can read of poetry that do talk about the intimacy of food or touch on that. And I also provided my Instagram account. So if y'all want to share like your food poems with me and you want some feedback, I'd be happy to provide that to you via Instagram. Also for the month of Poetry Month, which is April, I'll also be doing several free book raffles. So if y'all want to jump in, I'm also collaborating with some other artists to be giving out like some free coffee mugs and jewelry and so forth. So keep an eye out for those posts. That'll be happening this month. Aside from that, any questions before I hand it over to Daniel? Questions, comments, closures, how you're going to be moving on for the rest of the day? Everybody's all, I gotta get dinner done. But aside from that, I wanna say thank you all for hanging out. It means the world that we get to sit and just let the sound of the world shut off for a while and we get to hang out here for a little bit. So please continue to check out the other workshops that are going to be available in the coming weeks. I will hand it now over to Daniel. Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Karla. That was wonderful. Thank you everyone for taking the time to share work and to be a part of this workshop. As you've heard a number of times at this point, we have a lot of different programs that are rolling out throughout the days ahead of us. Tomorrow we have a workshop with Sage Sherlock pertaining to immunity with food, herbs, and lifestyle. That is going to be at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. And then we have a whole bunch of workshops coming out this coming week. So I hope to see more of you again in the future. I'm already seeing a bunch of familiar faces, which is really delightful. I totally forgot that April is National Poetry Month.
Yeah.
That's happening now, which is cool. Belém wants to know what your playlist was, Karla, if you want to also maybe throw that into your Google Doc.
Oh, absolutely. The group, it's, I think they're twin sisters. They're called Ibeyu. I'll put it on the chat.
Tight. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. And